Today, we're talking trenches. And today, we're going to talk about Kyle Shanahan and whether or not he is his own worst enemy in some ways. And we're going to be talking about whether or not the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams are a mirage. I'm going to make the argument, and then Tom is going to take me to the woodshed on my argument. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. Tom, are you ready to do this?
Let's get to it.
All right. Well, before we do, Tom, how are you? How you been? What's going on with you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I broke my computer glasses. That's why I've got these things on. I can't see nearly as well. So if I'm fumbling like Mr. Magoo in the dark, you'll know why. But other than that, I'm good. I've got new glasses coming on Monday, and then I'll be able to see again. That'll be good.
Very Harry Potter glasses, I have to say. Very Harry Potter-esque. I like it. I'm a big Harry Potter guy. So
5 points to Gryffindor. Yeah.
I can't do
that's what I look like. Yeah.
I got the Deathly Hallows back here somewhere.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool.
So anyway, let's talk 49ers. That's what people actually want to listen to, not to idiots.
Yeah, it's not Quidditch.
Harry Potter. Not Quidditch. All right, so trenches. Let's get into this because I want to talk both sides of the ball. I want to start on the defensive side of the ball, okay? So last year, the 49ers were the worst team in the league at getting pressure on a quarterback. And I don't even know it was literally that close, honestly. Obviously, a big part of that is Nick Bosa going down. He is a huge part of not just getting sacks, but disrupting the quarterback, making the quarterback move, getting pressures. And throughout his career until last season, so up to before last season, he actually had the highest double and triple team rates in the league and still is top 3, top 5 in pressures every year. And that includes he gets more double teams and triple teams than Myles Garrett even. Again, before last season. Those numbers have changed some. He's still up near the top. So I before we get too far into this, what is it that you think about the 49ers fan base and some of the content creators seem to think that we'd be better off if we traded Nick Bosa away, got assets for him, and moved on and tried to do something better. I think that's crazy. A, do you think that's crazy, or do you think we should move on from Nick Bosa? And B, what is it about him that makes him so effective?
I would not trade Bosa. I think that last year proved how dependent they are upon him. And the stat that you just gave, basically it's just by being on the field, he generates hockey assists in a way of just everybody gets more sacks because Bosa's there. And the reason he gets double and tripled is because there's nobody else. It's you stop Bosa, what happens to the Niner pass rush? We saw that last year. 20 sacks, one of the worst sack rates in NFL history. And it's all because Bosa's the only threat. Fortunately, this year, now they've added Osa Odighizuwa. Hopefully, Romello Height can have a factor. And hopefully they add somebody, be it sign a free agent, make a trade to add more depth as pass rushers. Because after Bosa and Height, you've got guys that are better at stopping the run than getting in. And you're going to need more guys, especially on the outside, that could generate a pass rush. So for me, Bosa, they have to keep him. Now, I understand people panicking, looking at next year's salary numbers and saying, $52 million? Now, you can explain that. You can break down the cap far better than I could. But what it comes down to is just all they have to do is just what they always do with everybody. They say, okay, we're gonna mix things up and we're gonna repackage all of this to make it more palatable. There's no way that Nick Bosa is going to be on the roster next year at 50 plus. They're going to do something. They're going to have to. And I don't think that they would trade Bosa to do it, especially given that they only had 20 sacks last year. And if you want to take advantage of Osa Odighizuwa, he's going to need Bosa on the field too. Therefore, keep Bosa. Come on.
Yeah, so we'll get to the run stuff in just a minute. I want to stay on pass for just a moment with you. So I totally agree with pretty much everything you're talking about there is why Nick Bosa is so vital to this team, why we need to keep Nick Bosa. And as far as the cap number goes, there's a common misconception. Maybe we need to do a cap episode here. Maybe next week we'll do a cap episode or something, and I can explain some of these things in more detail. But at the end of the day, the 49ers, every year we have people talking about, oh, the 49ers have cap room this year, but next year, and we every single offseason, we get the same talking points. And then every single year, the 49ers have $50 million in cap space. It's not an accident. They're better at anybody in the league at manipulating cap space.
Sure.
They know how to manipulate it. And there's actually a critical factor they do. Again, a little bit of a teaser for another episode on exactly what and how they use the mechanisms that are available to them to manipulate the cap. But Bosa is not going to play next year on a $52 million cap number. That's not going to happen.
They cannot allow that and won't.
Yeah. A lot of their cap relief next year will come from a Nick Bosa restructure and or extension.
Among others. There's like 4 or 5 guys that are all going to have to be restructured.
Yeah.
But Bosa is at the top of the list because he makes 52.
So pass rush. One of the things that I was clamoring for in this offseason was not for the 49ers to add an elite pass rusher from the edge, but to add an elite pass rusher from the interior. I think that this defensive line is helped more by an interior pass rush than it is from an exterior pass rush, because you can negate exterior pass rushers easier than you can negate somebody who can collapse the inside of a pocket or penetrate the inside of a pocket. It is impossible for a quarterback to step up and throw with a 300-pound defensive lineman in his face. It's just not how football works.
Right. And it optimizes Bosa and Osa to have both of them side by side.
That's exactly right.
If you're going to send 2 to 3 linemen at Nick Bosa, then Osa Odighizuwa is going to say, okay, feast time for me.
Exactly.
And so Osa is going to come through and break down the top of the pocket, which creates an opportunity for Bosa to come in. As you pointed out before, the Niner defensive scheme is based on where you attack the quarterback, and it's tiered, and therefore those tiers work best when you have an interior pass rushing threat. And the other thing that we've seen over time is, when were the Niners most successful as a pass rushing unit? When they had Defoe. And why did that happen? Because you had to double team him. And that's what they're hoping to get from Odighizuwa.
When you have to double team an interior player, it totally changes the pressure packages, the way the offensive line blocks as a whole. And it gives you one-on-one, not on one, but on both sides. Otherwise, you have to keep 6-7 people in the block. And now your defense, you can blitz all day. There's all sorts of things that opens up for the defense to be able to do. So to me, it was more important that they added an interior pass rusher. Now, I know the sack production for Osa Odighizuwa has not been there, but he was the #1 defensive tackle in the league last year in pressures.
Right.
So we just need someone who can get there. Not only, I think it's interesting that you pointed out, not only is Osa going to help Bosa, but Bosa is going to help Osa, because all that he's getting, it's going to give all those one-on-ones to Osa, and maybe he gets home just a few more times.
Yeah. Well, he should get more opportunities. And Bosa, you're not going to be able to load up the way he did before, because Osa Odighizuwa exists. And so an offensive line has to change up. What they used to do that would work on Nick Bosa no longer can, because Osa is here. That's concern that I have, though, is after Bosa, who's your pass rusher? Romello Height, who already got hurt and cramped up in the heat in Santa Clara. Not a good sign. And who else do they have? So I've been clamoring for a long time that they need to sign a free agent edge. That isn't Joey Bosa. I think that he's going to retire, but that can mean Jadeveon Clowney, Von Miller, Lawrence Floyd. There's a number of different people you could turn to. Kyle Van Noy, somebody, but you need someone who is best at pass rushing, because otherwise, what's going to happen? People are going to once again load up on Bosa because there isn't a threat on the opposite side, and that's a problem. Plus, you've got Height being somewhat of a DPR specialist. He's small. If you get hands on him, as the Utah tackles proved last year, he can be wiped out of the game. And so I want to see a legitimate free agent edge signed. I think that's something they have to do before the season begins.
So, fortunately, the way the 49ers rush the passer, because I agree with almost everything that you're saying there. Fortunately, the way the 49ers go about rushing the passer, and you alluded to it earlier, they do it in tiers. They want one person to win at 3 yards, one person to win at 5, and one to win at 7. Bosa's your guy that wins at 5. And that's the most important one, because they're coming right.
It forces the offense. Yeah.
So we now have somebody who can win at 3. What we need is someone who can run the run the circle, bend the edge, whatever phrase you want to use to win at 7 yards. I think Romello Height can do that, but I totally agree with you. Adding another veteran who can also do that. That's why I kind of lean towards the Von Miller type of guy to bring in. Like Jadeveon Clowney can get pressure, but he's more the same type of, he wins at 5 the same way that Bosa is, more of a power bull rush type pass rusher. I would love to see the 49ers bring in like a Von Miller, who all you're doing is asking him to go out there 30 times a game and go bend the edge. That's all you're asking him to do.
The concern that I have with that is every defensive lineman is a one-way player, except for Bosa. If you now say, okay, I want this edge bender, 3rd and 4, you can't put Romello Height on. He will be ragdolled. He will be roller skated. He will be off the field shortly. If you go with somebody that's like that, you don't have somebody to plug in on 3rd and middle. That's what I am concerned about. I want a two-way edge that can handle himself in the run and create enough respect from the offensive line that they have to balance it out. They can't, position everything toward dealing with Bosa and Osa. So I want a two-way edge. I don't want another specialist, because otherwise you're conceding third and medium. I don't like that they don't have that two-way edge on the roster right now.
So, okay. So I disagree a little bit, and here's why. So first of all, I agree that that's what they need, and that we don't currently have a player on the roster who is ideal for that situation, that 3rd and 3 to 3rd and 6 in that range, right? Where they can kind of do either. I do think Michael Williams, although his pass rush is, I think that if he can just get a little bit better as far as his pass rush, if he can just develop a bull rush, just a good bull rush, there's things that you can do with that. I think Michael Williams is a viable player, and because we're not talking about all the time, we're just talking about a specific situation. And I think that he can hold up well enough, and he can create enough pressure with a good bull rush, or just a little bit of a, bend the edge, just get off and get deep so that the quarterback has to stay in the pocket or step up in the pocket. I think he can do those things. So I think Keon White also is another one of those who can, because what you're really asking them to do is force the offensive line to play you straight up. That, you're just trying to make it so that if you need somebody to opposite Bosa who can create some sort of leverage to help the other people who are already or also rushing. And I think that both of those players can do that in that specific scenario. It's not ideal. It's certainly not ideal.
And here's the problem with both of them. They are both best at interior pass rushing.
Yeah.
Not on the outside.
So that's another
thing. If you're in 3rd and medium, I want a matchup, beat your man alignment situation / answer. I don't see it. Either you put Hyde on there to get at the quarterback and they run at him and get the first down, or you put Michael there or whoever, and they don't get any heat on the pass rusher. It's easier to convert on the passing down. I want a guy that can do both. They have to get somebody that can do both. That's their most vulnerable situation right now, is 3rd and medium, because they literally don't have a two-way edge.
Do you think Jadeveon Clowney is better than Michael Williams at pass rushing?
As a pass rusher on the outside, yes.
Okay. I think I would disagree a little there. I think that they're about equal. I don't think that Jadeveon Clowney is no, don't get me wrong. I'd be okay if they brought in Jadeveon Clowney too, or as well. And let's not forget, we can put Von Miller in those situations from time to time. It's not like he's a liability against the run. He's not a great edge setter or anything, but he's not a liability against the run. He can play the edges well in the run.
He's okay. He's not ideal. He's okay. I want somebody who's better than okay. Jadeveon Clowney ranked 15th as a pass rusher last year. He's a better pass rusher than people think. He's old, but he's good. And he was top 30, 35 against the run. So there's your two-way guy. If you look at every free agent edge, who is best at both? Clowney, clearly. Nobody else is near him. That's why I want Clowney.
Well, so I wouldn't say clearly he's the best at both because Von Miller is clearly a better pass rusher,
Best
even at
overall.
his
I'm
stage.
saying best as a two-way player, he can
Yeah.
handle both roles better than any alternative. You
Okay.
can say that Von Miller is better at an aspect of the game, but somebody that they can count on to handle both roles well. My list begins and ends with Clowney.
I gotcha. Okay, so let's move on. By the way, I'm super excited for Michael Williams to get back. I do think there's
Me too.
more
I want to see
there.
what Michael can do. Oh, sure he
I
is.
Yeah, there's
We
more
we
there on
forget
the
that
pass rush.
Michael is this young. You know,
He's
he's
and he's a
very young. He's
freak.
still growing into his body. And as he does that, he's going to be more impactful. So I think that Michael is going to be a factor this year. But I want to see proof of him doing that as an outside pass rusher from the edge. I haven't seen that proof yet.
The
I
guy
think
I
he
never
can, but will he? Maybe.
the guy that never really see him get comp to, and to me, it's pretty obvious. But maybe it's because the comp is the guy is so much of an older player. But Cameron Jordan is a guy that I think Michael Williams could have a very, very similar career. It took a little while for Cameron Jordan to become like an elite edge presence in the pass game. He was a dominant run defender right away, and he developed this really clean, consistent power pass rush game that when he got a little bit older, started to dominate at times. And I think
Well,
Michael Williams could have that same type of trajectory.
maybe, but that's a pretty big leap mentally.
Yeah.
Is that Cam Jordan? Let's remember he went to Cal. No dummy he. So he learned the game and applied it later on. I think that what's going to happen with Michael is he's going to get more physical and is just going to dominate as a physical player. Eventually, as Cam Jordan did, he can learn the game and apply something that takes him above and beyond where he is now. But since he's so young, I think that we can look forward to the next 4 years of Michael, if he can stay healthy, being a dominant physical presence and winning that way. And hopefully over time, he could do what Cam Jordan did, which is think the game in a new way to evolve your game. But even in Cam's case, it took him a long time to get to that point.
Exactly. Okay, so let's transition to the run defense for a moment because this is something I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. So Nick Bosa is an extremely underrated edge defender. He's looked at as a pass rusher. He's looked at almost like a pass rush specialist by some people. And I think people really either aren't watching, film or aren't paying attention. Nick Bosa is one of the top edge players against the run as well as against the pass. He's a little better against the pass, but he's an elite run defender as well. So when he comes back, and Keon White, I think, is going to be, and also Sam O, those guys are going to be able to hold up on the other end in the run game. I think that Alfred Collins, we've talked about this. I think he's a star. I think that he is honest. I really think that he's going to be a star. And if you put him next to Osa, who also is no slouch against the run, I think the 49ers could potentially have one of the best run defenses of football this year, especially considering they now have not one but two excellent run and hit linebackers playing behind that revamped defensive line. What do you think?
I think that's true, but we have to concern ourselves with health. Is that, Fred missed a lot of the year and Dre is Dre. So can they stay healthy? If they can, together they're better than the sum of the parts. That's the beauty of those two, is that there's a synthesis, there's a synergy that takes their game collectively to another level.
Yep.
And it works within this defense. My concern would be, though, that they are accustomed to playing wide nine. If Raheem goes with the 5-man front far more often than Fred and Dre have seen, they're going to have to adjust to that. They're exceptionally capable of doing that, but it is something new for them. I do look at this D-line, though, and say there's a lot of players here who are exceptionally good against the run. I think the reason that Bosa gets knocked is because he will run past the quarterback in his sacks, and people have their antenna way up for that specific play. They see that, and it's stay in your lane. And then right away, the quarterback takes off, and there it is. And Nick has done that a lot. And then so people, I think, are almost too attuned to that mistake, and then they get pissed. And yeah, so do I. But you also have to take that with the plays that you don't have your antenna up for, where he's making great plays against the run. It's just that when he does that one specific thing, people lose their minds. It's just, what are you doing? It's see the balance of his game. See everything he does, not just the things you love and hate. See the 360 degrees of Nick Bosa.
So what do you think that Osa adds to this run defense? I know he's a large human. He's got really long arms, but he didn't grade out. I don't think he graded out as well against the run as he does against the pass. Do you think that he's a plus over what we had last year, or do you think he's going to be about the same?
I think that he'll be, against the run anyway, he'll be similar to what he was last year, because that's not really his game yet.
To what he was, or to what we had?
To what he had in Dallas.
Him. What about?
I think he is not going to take it up a level until he learns how to play with his teammates, learns how to play within whatever system Raheem's going to run. I think that he's got a learning curve ahead of him, not as a pass rusher. He's a pure pass rusher. He's organic in that. He can do that falling out of bed. It's the run defense that he's going to have to learn. So I think we need to deal with that to a degree and say he's going to need to climb a learning curve early before he's as effective as we would hope him to be as a run defender.
But do you think that he's an upgrade over what the 49ers had last year playing next to
just
Alfred
because
Collins?
They were so young and you didn't really know, they were in a learning curve as well. Those guys didn't necessarily know, and rookies will have more limited reps and they won't win on power per se as often as veterans will. So there's a number of different factors that add into it, but I don't think you want to compare it to last year anyway. Last year, they didn't have Bosa. They missed Michael. They missed Fred. They didn't have Dre. A lot of the pieces that are now back in place are here, and that's going to make the run defense a lot better, provided they can stay healthy.
Okay. So all in all, I think you and I are pretty much on the same page on this one. The pass rush should be greatly improved. If they did nothing else but get Bosa back and trade for Osa, it's going to be a night and day difference in their ability to rush the passer. And it's going to be critical to their success this year. I think that Michael Williams potentially taking a little bit of a step forward. If Romello Height can just be a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 and longer DPR, that's going to really boost it as well. So I think that there's going to be a night and day difference in the pass rush. And I think their run defense, as far as the defensive line is concerned, should be at least as good as last year. And it was actually pretty solid for the most part last season.
Yeah, I just think that in tapping in the full potential of this team, you got a lot of guys with a lot of skill sets. And so every skill set is filled on the D-line, which is rare. And the only reason it happened is because you had Saleh followed by Raheem. So you get all-out run, all-out pass, and hey, what do you know? Your defensive room
you have a really well-rounded defensive line all of a sudden.
Because of those two competing agendas. You had 100% run, 100% pass, and I got both. And that's a great place for them to be. However, all those players, because they have that specialization, are going to need to learn how to play together, potentially in a new system. So the only thing that I'm saying is be patient, because they will have to learn how to play together and how to execute collectively in the first couple of weeks of the year.
Okay, so let's talk about the guys that have played together for quite a while now. Because I think one of the overlooked aspects of the offensive line is that we now have quite a bit of continuity. We have a right guard going into his 3rd season next to a right tackle that is now firmly entrenched as the starter. Even 2 years ago, Colt McKivitz was like, is he an answer? Turns out, yeah, he is. He's actually one of the better right tackles in the league at this point. And then on the other side of the ball, right? Well, it's one more example of the 49ers. The 49ers get criticized for not developing players well a lot, and I don't understand why that is. They consistently
I don't think development is the issue. I think
players.
It's investment. There are positions they do not invest in with high picks or free agency or trades. Mm-hmm. And those positions get neglected. That's not a question of development. It's a question of priorities with Kyle as GM.
And we're
Different
going to
thing.
stay tuned because we are definitely going to get into that in our next topic. So the offensive line, Trent Williams obviously been here a long time now. Jake Brendel's been here for a while, unfortunately. And we even have probably Connor Colby taking over at left guard. It looks like he's the one who's going to be given the first opportunity at that spot. And with him being in his second year now, there's actually some continuity across this entire offensive line. So they get ranked 6th overall by PFF. They get ranked top 10 consistently, whether you're asking GMs or all these rankings, they're always a top 10 offensive line. My question is, do you agree that they're a top offensive line? And if you do, why do you think the fan base is so down on the 49ers offensive line?
I think 6 is way too high. That this unit, while it's skilled at certain things, is not skilled at the things they need to do to beat the teams ahead of them.
Okay.
Yeah. You look at this offensive line and say, okay, what do you need to do most against the Seattle defense? You need to push that interior defensive line off of the line of scrimmage. Do they do it? No. Does the run get shut down as a result? Yes.
They can't do it. Right?
They're physically incapable of it.
Yeah.
So given that, how can you say that this is a top 6 offensive line? It's not. They can't dictate to anyone. They have guys that are exceptionally skilled. Trent, Hall of Famer, first ballot, unbelievable. And you look at the rest of them and say, McKivitz has really developed and grown. He is now I don't even need to think about it, right tackle. Part of the reason why is because of Pooney, that Pooney has helped his game develop so that McKivitz can trust to not having to worry about Pooney and just dealing with his matchup. So I think that Pooney was critical to McKivitz taking the jump that he did. Brendel, we know that Forster loves him and he's smart and he'll make out the play calls, etc. But he's 35 and there are limitations that come with that. And then left guard, we'll see. I agree that Colby will probably get the first attempt, but by the end of the year, I think Robert Jones is going to be that starting left guard. But that's me. I tend to be pessimistic on how quickly a young player can develop NFL core strength as a lineman. I think that you can make a jump from rookie to year 2, but you don't really make the complete jump until year 3. And I think that that's what we're looking at with Colby, is that he'll be stronger, he'll be better, but he won't be strong enough to what they need to beat the Seattle interior defensive line, and therefore Robert Jones. And that's my thinking on that.
So I'm in total agreement with you. I think 6 is rich. I think that the primary reason the fan base is sort of down on the offensive line, because I've never really heard it, even by content creators, I've never really heard somebody clearly explain why they think the offensive line sucks, with the one exception of Jake Brendel is a hole in the middle of our offensive line, and he is a total liability. There's several people that think that he is just almost unplayable. Clearly, the 49ers disagree.
Forster disagrees, but yeah.
So for me, okay, I remember this last offseason, before the 2025 season, I was talking with my boy Coach, and I was also talking with my boy Gammon, right? Very popular in the comments. Shout out Gammon.
Yeah, Gammon's great.
And
love Gammon.
I was telling them, because we're all having the same conversation that we have every offseason. Is the offensive line going to fall apart this year? There's no way this offensive line is going to be good. This guy sucks, that guy sucks, and so on and so forth. And then it turns out at the end of the season, it's fine, right? Like every year.
It's not fine. It's okay. It's good enough.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But so is it good enough to win on the matchups they must win to win a playoff game? No. And that's the problem. And so you can look at it and say, I think that Brendel is kind of similar to Nick Bosa in that when he does the things you hate, you see it right away. Your antenna is finely tuned to pick up, Brendel's worst hits. And then you see him, oh, God, here we go. And so we overreact to the negative and we underappreciate the positive in his case. I get that. But at the same time, the thing that I am most worried about with Brendel is 35, is that can he stay healthy? Maybe not. And can that be a good thing? Maybe so. Toth played well in Philly, and he got some great coaching. It's one of the best offensive line coaching staffs in the league. They developed him. I'm not worried if Brendel goes off the field, I'm not rooting for his injury. I'm just saying that
blessing in disguise.
the Niners could improve at center with Toth. I don't think that Carver Willis is going to be able to move to center this year, but I think that's the long-term plan for him, is that within 2 to 3 years, he will be the starting center. Until then, it's Brendel and Toth, and we'll see what they can get done. But I'm not worried about the drop-off as much as I was in prior years when the backup OL was, just somebody like Nick Zakel, who shouldn't even be in the NFL. It's you need guys that can actually play. And that's one of the things that I think is sort of hidden on this offseason, was that they made a point of, we need to get better in our OL depth in case we've got injuries. And now here's Vidarian Lowe already hurt. So you're going to have to deal with all of this. But to me, the guy that I'm kind of counting on if somebody gets hurt is Toth. I think that he's a diamond in the rough. He played well for Philly last year. I think he could do well for us.
So I think we're pretty much in agreement here. I think the offensive line is better than the sort of fan base consensus, but not as good as the sort of NFL consensus. It really, like I said, the conversation I was having with those guys is, every year we panic. Every year we throw a hissy fit. We talk, we need to upgrade here. We need to upgrade here. We need to spend a first round pick. We need to get a tackle. We do this every single offseason. And then the season is played out and you look back and you're like, you know what? It was fine. Like, they weren't spectacular. They're not a top 5 unit, but like, it was fine. It's always just sort of fine. And I think a lot of that has to do with scheme. And I think
partially.
that hold on. So I think a lot of it has to do with scheme, right? They do a tremendous job with this scheme on creating positive angles for their offensive linemen, both in the pass blocking and run blocking, specifically in the run blocking, but in the pass blocking as well. They also do a tremendous job with their slides and protections of making sure they at least have the initial attack taken care of. There's a little bit of a liability when you do delayed blitzes and stuff. I've seen that a little bit, where the slide protections don't do a great job sometime of picking up certain stunts or delayed blitzes. But they do a lot of the reason that the 49ers offensive line plays better than it probably should is because they play in a scheme that helps them a lot. I think that what you said earlier is probably the most critical part of this conversation, though. The 49ers don't have the ability to just dictate terms to a defensive line that's actually a good defensive line. The only thing that they can do is they can get to their spots, wall them off. We can still operate against a good defensive line. It's not like we're just totally screwed. The problem is in critical situations, in the playoffs, against the best teams, you can't count on the ability to wall off defenders often enough. At a certain point, you have to man up and move somebody out of the way, and the 49ers just can't do that, at least not consistently.
No. And playoff games are mismatches. And unfortunately, part of the mismatch problem for the Niners is the lack of investment in the offensive line shows up exactly there. And that's why Kansas City, on their delayed blitzes from Spags, caused all kinds of damage. Yep. And Chris Jones did too. And so you have to look at it and say, there is a price paid for Kyle's cap strategy, which is using the offensive line as a savings center. Is that I'm going to invest in Trent, not anything else. And because we spend so little on that offensive line, we can spend more elsewhere. I get that, but the bill comes due when you're in the playoffs against defenses that have invested heavily in that defensive line to make it work. Now, the Niners still beat Philly, so they were still able to do that. It's just that Philly at that point was such a train wreck, they essentially beat themselves on top of the Niners doing that. But you still need to give credit to the O-line, is that you faced a good defense in Philadelphia and you guys did well. And that's something to build on. But you can't keep kicking the can down the road every single year. Trent is going to retire at 40. You have to have somebody that's going to be there. Center, I think they just addressed it, Carver Willis, long-term. Everything else is a crapshoot. I want to see an investment in a left guard next year early, or a center, either one. Now, that could be the center from Oregon is the guy that I like the most. I love Samoans. I interviewed Jesse Sapolo back in the day. Give me that guy. Something. But it's just, I want to see an investment in the interior offensive line that can take it at the Seattle interior defensive line. Until you do that, it's going to be tough to beat the Seahawks. So I think they've got to do that. And
There's
now
an
that they've got an
old
opportunity,
phrase.
you've got a pretty good, not great, but a pretty good offensive line draft. I don't want to see them go offensive line in the first round, though, because this is a star draft. This is where the highest impact players long term are available. Go get one of them. But second, third, fourth, get your offensive lineman. So we'll see what they do. But that's my hope, is that they can address all of this eventually. But if they panic with Trent and say, we must take a tackle of the first round. Now, the 1 year when you forced a tackle in the first round was McGlinchey. After him, 5 all-pro players and an MVP went later. Don't make that mistake again. This is the 1 year when I'm going to say,
we'll get to that in a minute.
Draft a tackle in the first round of this draft. Every other year, fine. This one, don't you dare. Will they? Maybe.
So
it'll drive me nuts. I'm going to pound them with Derwin James to the day I die. You idiots passed on Derwin James.
Hey.
I will never let you forget it. I was pounding the table for him for a year, and then you did this. Yeah.
Florida State Seminole.
Why
right
do I
here,
hate Parag so
Trust me, I understand.
Much? I know.
So there's a phrase that my parents used to tell me all the time growing up. Want in one hand, do something else in the other, and tell me which one fills up first, right? So I'm with you on this. Same track mind on this. They're just never going to do it. They're not going to invest resources, at least not draft capital and cap space, into the offensive line. They're going to use the scheme
it's not how Kyle
to elevate. It's just how they, right? That's just, he's not wired that way. And that's a perfect transition into the next topic. So the thing about Kyle, the people that question whether or not he's as smart as people say they are and stuff like that, it's just, please don't, anybody that brings up, just don't listen to that person. But just don't. Because the dude is a like borderline football savant. He knows football inside and out. He knows defenses better than almost every defensive coordinator in football. He knows scheme. He knows all these things. The problem is he has his own set way of how he processes things, how he makes decisions. It's the process that's an issue. When they built this team, they built it with certain things sort of hardwired into it. It's part of their DNA. We just talked about the offensive line and how they don't spend resources on the offensive line. That is hardwired into their DNA. That is not going to change. And they've had a lot of success doing it that way. To them, there's no reason to change. They don't have to them, they don't have a reason to change that, so there's no reason to. Now, also, when it comes to the skill players, right? They invest a ton of resources into skill players, whether it's third-round running backs, first and second-round wide receivers. They're constantly dumping resources into that. When's the last time they drafted a capable tight end? I'll tell you, it was in year 1. So the first and only tight end that they drafted is the only one they've drafted that's worth a damn. So why they can't get that right is weird, because they actually have spent some resources on tight end, right?
And failed.
Now, and they have over and over again. It's really weird to me how much they fail on tight end, and I'll circle back around to that in a second. So the point I want to bring up here is, to me, Kyle Shanahan clearly has the intellect, the IQ, the football know-how. It's not like he just misses it. To me, the issue is the process, the way they go about things. And I'd like to point out a couple of things real quick, and then I'll throw it over to you. So when you look at the Trey Lance draft pick, right, this is like the perfect example of it, is the way they went about that whole thing, right? I loved it that they drafted Trey Lance. I was rooting for them to draft Trey Lance over Mac Jones. I wanted them to take a shot on the guy that seemed to have more upside. At the time, it seemed he had more upside than Mac Jones did. However, the idea that you trade up to the 3rd pick ahead of the draft and you don't even know who you're picking is insane to me. That is the worst process.
It's just beyond process.
That's Cleveland
failure.
Browns, New York Jets type failure of process. It is insane to me that you trade 3 first-round picks to move up in the first round to go to number 3 and you don't even know who you're picking. That's okay. So let's set that aside for a second, because
Let's move this dinosaur-sized crater off to the left.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so the one to me that's even worse than that is when you're so arrogant, you don't even look. John Lynch came to Kyle Shanahan when they're doing their very first draft process, said, "Hey, Kyle, I know we're not thinking quarterback this year. I know we're thinking defensive line with this first pick, but there's a quarterback out of Texas Tech you really need to take a look at before we decide." And Kyle basically says, "Listen, I've told you we need to worry about that. I'll get a mid-round quarterback and we'll pick up Kirk Cousins next year. It'll be fine. We're going defensive line," and doesn't even look at a player by the name of Patrick Mahomes. That is such a flawed process. And when I heard about that, it was really eye-opening to me because I always kind of I was very flippant about the people who criticized Kyle Shanahan and his process when it comes to the draft, because it's very clear that Kyle Shanahan is responsible for the top end of the draft and the front office is responsible for the back end of the draft. Why there's even any controversy around that anymore, I don't understand. Why John
the results
Lynch
speak
crushed.
for themselves. Yeah, it jumps off the page if that's what's going on.
Yeah, John Lynch gets crushed for all the missed first-round picks. It's like, he has nothing to do with that, right? For the most, right. He gives Kyle a list. Now, maybe he gets 10% of the credit for the bad picks because he is the one giving Kyle a list. But at the end of the day, Kyle is the one who is deciding between the 50 players or whatever that they're considering in the first round. It has nothing to do with anybody else in the building. So anyway, I don't want to get bogged down on that. So process. This is where I think Kyle has a huge flaw in his process. You tell me, is it because he's trying to outsmart the rest of the NFL? Is he trying to outsmart the room? Or does he just think what you tell me, why is it that his process is so flawed?
Because he believes with his heart and soul and mind that his process is correct. He just needs to have a team that can execute it.
Is it just arrogance?
He doesn't see the flaw. One of the things that we may see post-concussion is a more humble Kyle Shanahan. He's going to be diminished mentally. He's going to be diminished in mental energy. I went through this. I was nearly killed in a car accident where it was T-boned and then crushed on the back end by a truck. And the cop told me, "You're lucky to be alive." Kyle went through something similar to that. We are underplaying what a concussion can do to you mentally. I'd be surprised if he goes to Melbourne. But long term, the question becomes, can you do head coach, offensive coordinator, GM? No. And I think that Kyle is going to be faced with his own mortality. He's accustomed to being the walking hard drive of knowing everything. And he does. And as you pointed out, he's exceptional at it. Is that you can have, especially in his play calling, where he just pulls it out from his defensive knowledge. He sees what the team is doing. He sees what the defense is trying to accomplish. And he can pull out of his head, this play will kill them. Inevitably, it does. It wasn't in the game plan. It wasn't anything they worked on in practice. It's Kyle knowing, going through his hard drive, this is going to really mess with them and work. And invariably it does. Is Kyle going to have that capability post-concussion? I'm not sold on that based on what I went through. But I don't know if that's what Kyle is going through. So I am thinking worst case just because that was never to me. That's what I saw. Now, specific to the process of Patrick Mahomes, keep in mind that there were a lot of people that were either on or off on him. And the people that were on were few and far between. And it didn't even include at the time Andy Reid. It took Brett Veach saying, "I've seen this kid. He's the truth. You come out there, you work with him, you'll see what I do." That's how Kansas City drafted him. It was through Brett Veach. Reid had the same approach
but Reid
to Mahomes
actually
that Kyle
listened to
did.
his GM. That's the difference. He actually listened to his GM.
Here's the bigger difference. Reid has a GM. Kyle doesn't.
That's fair.
And that's part of the issue, is that you need somebody that can evaluate talent. The guy that I've always said that they need to go get is Ray Agnew, the assistant GM in Detroit. He's been there forever. He has a league-wide rep as one of the best talent evaluators in the league. Every year, Detroit has a money draft. He's part of why. I want that guy.
That dude don't miss very
Now,
much.
through this concussion stuff, could Kyle let go of something? Maybe so. Now, am I rooting for it? No, but it's something that I know I went through. You don't have the same capability you had prior to the accident. You just don't. You don't have the same walking hard drive. You don't have the same mental energy. You don't have the same capability overall. There are things that can really mess you up and sidetrack you that never did before. And you cannot just black out in the first month, gray out 3 months, 4 months, where you don't know where you are. And that can happen to Kyle during a game, which is why I think he can't call plays anymore either. He needs to be somebody that zooms together with Kubiak. Is that Kyle can help build the game plan over the course of the week. He can either sit in the booth next to Kubiak or he can zoom, but I don't think he can call plays because you will otherwise face the problem of Kyle grays out, and now you have to burn a timeout because you're incapable of dealing with everything that has to happen in the moment of figuring out play call and everything else. So I think that Kubiak is going to have to be day-to-day, play-to-play, play caller of this team this year. Now, hopefully Kyle doesn't have it as bad as I did, but for me, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was Kyle Shanahan and he had what I had. 6 months game planning, yeah, you can do that collectively. Game planning in the moment on the sideline, you can't. So we're going to have to learn a lot about what Kyle's capability is. But beyond that, that feeds into the process that you're talking about. And the solution is Kyle can't be the head, can't be the GM. You need somebody that evaluates the talent. Kyle is not just a bad talent evaluator. He's particularly a bad talent evaluator at quarterback. You need somebody who's better at it. I mean, and that's the reason they got Brock Purdy. It wasn't because of Kyle.
So, okay. I don't want to get too bogged down with the concussion. By the way, I'm with you on I actually have had a severe concussion myself. So when I was playing football, I played linebacker for whatever reason. I couldn't ride a roller coaster till I was 15 because I was so small. Why the hell I demanded to play linebacker? My older brother played linebacker. I wanted to be cool. Death wish. But I had absolutely zero concern for my own safety. I was the wedge breaker. I was 5'2", 128 pounds. I was the wedge breaker on special teams because I would literally run down.
Where is your coach saying, "What are you doing, Damon? Have a seat."
I would throw my whole body sideways at the whole wedge and take out like 3 guys. I was
yeah, and kudos to you. You were great at that. You're just this human missile. But that's not the way to protect your head.
So I met the fullback who was twice my size in the hole, and he was one of our best players. The other one of the players on our team that was one of our best players 2 weeks after this incident actually got elevated to varsity. And this is my freshman year in high school. The strong safety comes from 20 yards deep and meets me and the fullback in the hole. My head is turned sideways. Fullback's face mask is here, and the strong safety's face mask goes here. And I got hit so hard, it split my helmet down the middle.
Damn.
And I out cold. I just remember.
Did you wake up in the hospital?
No. So it was smelling salts, maybe, out probably 30 seconds or so. Mom gets called. I go to the hospital. I have what's called short-term amnesia when I get to the hospital. My short-term memory didn't work anymore. I couldn't record any new information. So the doctor told me that, and for the rest of my life, I'll always remember purple doghouse because those are the 3 words that she asked me to remember that for the life of me, I could not remember 30 seconds after she uttered it. And so the mental fog, that gray out that you're talking about, I went from being somebody who could walk into any test without studying ever. And then all of a sudden I'm like having a real hard time recalling things. So I totally understand. A couple years later, I was kind of back to myself. I'm not sure I ever got back to the way I was before that, but
yeah, you don't get to 100, but you can get to 90 and that's good enough. But 90 in Kyle's case is a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
Because he's a savant. He has a photographic memory of what play beats a defense. And prior to the accident, had instant recall of that and could call it improvisationally and burn a team. Can you do that
So
now? Probably not. Can you do that in a
second
year?
aspect.
Maybe. Can you do it
Yeah.
in 3 years? Probably.
It'll take time. It'll take time.
Yeah.
So there's a second aspect to Kyle Shanahan that I want to ask you about, and we're running low on time here. We may end up going a little long, but the thing I want to ask you about is, so there are certain aspects of the way that Kyle goes about developing a roster and a game plan, and a way he goes about how he decides who's going to do what. And I feel like it's super flawed, and here's why. We talked about this. You have a quarterback who, when he's in the pocket and has time, he is the most efficient, most effective passer in football, and it's really not that close. Brock Purdy in the pocket with time and not under pressure, his numbers are bananas. And yet,
that's always frustrated me. Rising tide lifts all boats. Come on.
So instead of spending money on the people who put Brock Purdy in the best position to succeed, you have this quarterback who's a hyper processor, who's super accurate. He can do all the things you want him to do with your offense. Problem is, he's a little small, and you have to give him, you actually have to protect him a little bit, because he's not a 6'5", 260-pound guy with a cannon arm. He needs a little bit of an offensive line in front of him so he can do his thing. And yet, our entire offensive strategy when it comes to roster building is no. Give him the best players you can find to throw to, but don't put any resources into the people that actually allow him to be his best. You're asking Brock Purdy to play like 90% of what he could be, simply because the process in which you build the roster is flawed. And it's insane to me.
Yeah. But that's Kyle. It's something he's unlikely to change. And the way that I view it is, he sees the offensive linemen as pawns, and he sees weapons as knights, queen, rook. He's more concerned about what the power pieces can do and enable his quarterback to do than he is of saying, if my offensive line could do this, then what? No. Imagine Brock, where he doesn't have to think about the pass rush coming after him and can just execute. We've seen that. We've seen the numbers. The numbers are insane. It's quarterback rating. It's like Steve Young quarterback rating numbers. And so you think, okay, so why aren't you making that happen? Because Kyle is married to, I don't take the offensive lineman early. Gibbs had a lot of success in Denver under my dad. He developed the wide zone. I trust him. He said, you never need to spend a first-round pick when you run the wide zone. And my response to that is, do you want to pass protect for your quarterback? And so, it's just, all of it falls into place of all of these things where Kyle does what he does for a reason. And it's just being his father's son, seeing the Denver example, Gibbs being the guru of this offensive line style. It's inevitable that Kyle's going to do this. So is he ever going to change? No. And we have to figure out, okay, now what? And I think that the only thing that we can really realistically hope for is a change at GM. But until that happens, the Niners, through the process and through Kyle's agenda, will be good, but not quite good enough for a ring. And that's what we've seen. You're good enough to make the Super Bowl. You're not good enough to win it because of Kyle's offensive line agenda. It stops him in his tracks.
I've got to push back a little bit on this because this is it's fair. You're not the only one that has that opinion. It's a very common opinion.
Oh yeah, I'm not alone for once.
So for once, yeah. So here's the thing with, okay, the 49ers were up 10 points in both Super Bowls and didn't close. Yep. And in the second Super Bowl, so the first Super Bowl, I'm sorry, but Jimmy let them down. The opportunities were there. The plays were there to be made. Jimmy didn't make the plays to keep the 49ers on the field. It's that simple. There multiple plays. He did not make the play. It was there to be made. I'm not just talking about the one he missed to Emmanuel Sanders that would have probably sealed the game. Because at a certain point, if you're able to stay on the field, that's critical. No, it's fine. That's the linchpin play.
Sanders
You're right.
Is the reason for Trey Lance.
Totally correct. Yes. Yep. So, and in the second Super Bowl, though, we have a very different situation where Brock Purdy, for his last 4 drives, with the exception of one kneel down, he left the field with the lead, 4 drives in a row. The 49ers need to get 1 stop in 4 drives, and they win a championship. That is not on Kyle Shanahan not having a good enough offensive line.
Is it?
The critical element, well, I mean, yeah, okay.
How many unblocked pass rushers were there during the game?
Did it prevent
8.
them?
What was the deciding play of the game? Unblocked pass rusher preventing
absolutely
Brock
not
from making the pass to a wide open Ayuk.
No, the play of the play that determined that game was when Patrick Mahomes scored a touchdown to tie the game and then scored again in the overtime. The missed play to Brandon Ayuk could have sealed it for the 49ers, but they were still winning. Like when they missed that play,
that could have put the game away. In a Super Bowl, you have certain moments where you have an opportunity to seal it.
Yes,
the Niners under Walsh found a way to do that. Under Shanahan, they didn't. Why? Because they didn't invest in the offensive line to seal the game. First quarterback against Kansas City, first Super Bowl rather. When Jimmy was under duress, when he was pressured, what did he do? 1 for 9 with a pick on first down. What happened? Why did the Niners defense fall apart? They were gassed because the Niners couldn't keep the ball. Why? Because the offensive line sucked. Because anytime that Jimmy Garoppolo faced pressure, forget it. And that's what happened. 1 for 9 with a pick. What's that quarterback rating? It ain't good. And so there's Super Bowl 1. Lack of investment in offensive line directly causing a Super Bowl defeat, period, to me.
Okay.
Super Bowl 2 against Kansas City. 8 unblocked pass rushers on delayed blitzes and what have you, and the offensive line couldn't deal with it. Why? Because they don't have matchups on the OL.
Okay,
they,
so to
they
me,
aren't having. They don't have somebody that can defend Chris Jones. They don't have somebody that can deal with those pass rushers. I mean, look at the Baltimore game. The Niner quarterbacks threw what? Christmas Eve, Christmas night, whatever it was.
Christmas night, yeah.
5 interceptions. Brock threw 4. You know, what did all those come from? Blitzes. The Niners had no hope of defending, blocking. Period.
So okay, I don't want to get bogged down in this.
It's just I look at the offensive line and say that's your fault, Kyle Shanahan. You're why you don't have rings.
Yeah. So okay. I will concede that the offensive line is a primary reason the 49ers don't have at least 1 ring in the Kyle Shanahan era.
Yeah.
And they are potentially the primary reason, but they are at the very least a primary reason that the 49ers don't have a ring.
Yeah, it's not the only reason.
I think in the first Super Bowl, the defense didn't get gassed. The defensive line got gassed. And I think the reason for that is because they didn't rotate anybody the whole game. They played the starting 4 over and over and over. They did not. Robert Saleh was terrified to
that's a good point.
Anybody else into that game.
Because he knew they weren't good enough. He had
that's right.
No depth. He had great starters and 0 depth.
No depth.
And the other problem with that is it becomes worse because Saleh refuses to blitz. And so you don't generate a pass rush unless you've got those 4 guys. If you had somebody who was more willing to blitz, if Spagnuolo switched teams, that's not an issue. Spagnuolo would have dealt with that and they would have won.
Okay, let's figure this out.
So if we have a laundry list of why didn't the Niners win these Super Bowls, to me at the top of the list, Kyle Shanahan's wrong agenda on offensive line and refusal to invest in free agency and the draft in offensive linemen. And therefore, you lose the mismatch against great teams in the playoffs who invested in exactly what you don't want, their defensive line, and they make you pay for it, and you lose as a result. That's number 1. Number 2, Mike McGlinchey. You take McGlinchey out, and you say, okay, take anybody else that was great after him. Lamar, how about that? Vita Vea, how about that? Derwin James, how about him? Frank Ragnow, how about him? How bad was that pick? And that's what happens when you have Parag saying, and here's the bad process again, and it's not Kyle. It's Parag saying, the tackle wants too much money. We're going to get rid of him and trade him, and then we're going to draft his replacement. And you're going to draft his replacement in the best draft in the NFL in 20 years, and you're going to take a tackle that's mid at best, and you're going to pass on a league MVP
instead of the
and
first
5
or second
All-Pros.
best
You're
guy
an
in 5
idiot.
positions. Yeah.
And that is right. Yeah, you still could have made do if you took Colton Miller. It still would have worked out somewhat. But passing on all those guys, imagine. I mean, Niners with Lamar, think that might have worked out? Derwin James, Vita Vea, Frank Ragnow? Come on, idiots. Minka Fitzpatrick was there too.
Minka was in that draft?
Come on. And so that's,
James
he was right at Minka and Derwin James were both available. I was banging the table for both. I wanted Derwin James more. That they passed on both of them. I was just
Derwin James is at Florida State. I don't think
it's a good thing I was nowhere near Parag during that time. I'd be in jail right now. I was so furious. I was just beyond pissed. So to me, that's number 2 is just stupid ass drafting, and starting with Mike McGlinchey. You also passed on Tristan Wirfs when you had the draft pick to take him, and you take Kinlaw. Oops. Okay. There's a lot of them.
They could have taken Tristan Wirfs instead of taking Kinlaw, and a lot of people say, "Well, then you don't get Trent Williams." Why? Why can't we have both? You can you traded a 5th and a 3rd for Trent Williams. If you drafted Tristan Wirfs, guess what you're doing? You're still going to go get Trent Williams when he becomes available, and you have the best tackle combination maybe in the history of the league.
Yeah, or at least going back to Cincinnati
in a while.
What they had.
Yeah,
way back in the day,
Dallas maybe
with Munoz and Hannah and all that. Yeah, but that far back, and so you're talking 30 years, and so they could have done that easily. And why did they get Trent? Because of Kyle's relationship with Trent. Trent trusted Kyle, and that's why he went here.
He literally called Kyle, so, like, "Hey, I'm about to go to Kansas City.
Why would you think that getting Tristan? Yeah. So why is getting Tristan Wirfs canceling out Trent when you already had a relationship with Trent?
Yeah, that's nonsense.
I think they would have done both. But regardless, I think that's number 2 on the list is really, really stupid drafting. And that goes to Mahomes. That goes to anybody you want to name. I can go through like 20 to 30 guys of who they could have taken that was on the board and they didn't. And that can even go in recent years to taking TDP instead of Kirby Joseph. And Kirby Joseph is what? Drum roll, all-pro safety. Think it might have been helpful to have him? It's just, this is the problem, is that they don't evaluate the draft or use it correctly. So, yeah, it all goes back to that. It
all goes back to process.
Yeah.
And this, for me, this is what I wanted to point out. That's what this whole topic is about. The idea that Kyle Shanahan is somehow not smart enough, or he doesn't know how to see good. It's not like he thinks that Derwin James was going to suck, so he grabbed this guy and said, no. He probably thought Derwin James was awesome, but his process is this other player is the player that I'm going to go with in this situation because X, Y, Z. But it's his process that leads him to make that decision, and it consistently lets him down, and by extension, us being let down as he does it. So listen, we're over an hour in. I've got one. We're gonna bypass the last topic.
I drove us into a ditch. My apologies.
No,
sorry about
good. That. I love talking ball with you, and I could do it all night long. We go 3 hours. But nobody wants to listen to us talk for 3 hours. So I want to go.
True.
One last thing I'm gonna hit you with. We're gonna skip the last topic. We're gonna do that next Friday because I really do want to hit you with my argument. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. But I want to ask you before we get off here. Who are you watching? Who are you most interested in? And who are you hoping pans out or takes the next step? Who are you hoping really succeeds through this training camp process?
Well, in training camp, the guy that you want to see succeed are the young guys. You want to see a jump. You want to see a leap. So Connor Colby, can he become?
Okay, Connor
Colby, can he become the left guard they need? Can he make the leap they hope he can? I don't think he can, but I'm going to be rooting for him to do it. I think that Robert Jones is more capable because he's more physical. But Colby is one that I would be looking for on offense. I also want to see what Black can do because I think that he's more than just a runner. He's a pass protector. He's a blocker, and he's a capable vertical receiver. Is that for once, Kyle can now say, I don't need to make sure that Christian's on the field all the time. Black can make those plays in the passing game.
That's right.
So those are the two that I'm looking for. The ones that I'm worried about, Kittle. If Kittle either can't stay healthy or doesn't, there goes your run game, because he added 1.5 yards per carry to their run game last year when he came back healthy.
That's
If they don't have
right.
that, and right now they don't, and they've already burned through Khalil Dickens, they got rid of him, they cut him. We were all hoping that he could be the blocking tight end. Then they got a guy from Cincinnati. Now they got a guy from Green Bay. That's going to be a revolving door. Is who's going to be that third tight end that can block and help them? If they don't have Kittle, the run game is in serious trouble.
Why is it that they're so unwilling to go get like a Jonnu Smith? Is it that they just don't want to pay $10 million a year for a guy? Like,
yeah,
there's been guys that are available you can go get for 10, 12 million. You don't have to pay him 20 like Kittle. You can go, there's guys out there for 10, 12 million, but instead all you're willing to do is go get, Jake Farrell is, he got 3 years, 21 million. No, it wasn't. It was like 3 years, 15 million, maybe. Like the rest of that was all fluff. It was like a $3, $4, $5 million a year guy. Like, please go pay a little bit of money.
It was incentives, and there were no way that those incentives would ever be met. He's not a stat guy to begin with, his blocker, but he's not even that good at that.
This year is like a little over $3 million.
Right. It ain't much, but here's, why do they keep doing this? Because their blueprint is locked. Their cap blueprint is locked in. We will spend X on this position, Y on another. Thank you, Mikey. Appreciate it, man. Kind words. Thank you. So we'll see what they do, but I think that they're going to have a revolving door for that third blocking tight end all year. And they're going to go shopping. They're going to be vultures. They're going to have to be. They're going to have to be vultures when the waiver wire precedes the cut down. Is that all those guys that get lost, there better be a tight end that can block in that list, and they need to go get them. So that's where I'm at on offense, is that I'm looking to see who steps up at left guard. I'm looking to Black and saying, I believe in you, and I think you can do better than people think. And I'm looking at Kittle with a lot of concern.
All of those things that you just said are exactly why I think that Brock Purdy is going to have, and I don't mean to end with Brock Purdy, but to me, I'm going to save this for next week. I think Brock Purdy's going to have an incredible season, and all the things that you just said are exactly why, because I think that it's one of those situations where it doesn't matter what direction it goes, it leans in Brock Purdy's favor. And I'll explain that on the next episode. Little teaser for next week. It leans toward
passing because they're not going to be able to run.
So next week, we're going to get into more of this. We're going to get into why I think the Rams and Seattle Seahawks are a mirage. And we're going to get into why the way this offense has been built lends towards Brock Purdy having a massive season. And we're going to top some cap figures. We're going to go over some cap information for everybody and just explain a few of the cap metrics and stuff to people. And
a restructuring breakdown would be really helpful, because there's a lot of those guys are going to have to be restructured. I think there's 4, maybe 5. Well,
listen, I appreciate you so much for coming on here with me, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Damon. I appreciate it too.
It's been so much fun. I love talking ball with you. I love the fact that you and we can just be totally opposite ends of the universe, and we can still have a conversation about it, and we can still laugh and enjoy each other's company while we're taking each other apart. It's so much fun for me. I love that. Enjoy it. I know I'm weird,
me too.
But I tell people all the time, I'm here for the smoke. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I don't get upset. I know a lot of people say that, but I actually mean it. I'm not bothered by it. As long as there's some intellectual honesty, I'm okay.
Right. Is it something you believe? Can you back it up? But beyond that, I love the humanity behind having the conversation. I'm not going to tear you apart. I still understand why you think the way you do, but you're wrong.
But I'm going to tear your take apart.
How both of us will approach it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I enjoy the conversation. So I look forward to doing that more often, and appreciate the time we spent today.
All right, Tom. Well, listen, y'all, if you're still here, somehow still watching this, subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. Tom and I are working together. We're trying to get this thing going. We need your help, though. You got to hit buttons. They're down at the bottom. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time.